Morning, everyone, and welcome to this breakout session focused on what is social entrepreneurship and the impact that it can have. Since we have a smaller group, hopefully after we get through the presentations, we can definitely have more of an open conversation and ask questions and have interaction as we go. So kind of the structure is that we're going to have two 15-minute presentations, and then the last half of our time together then is open for that kind of dialogue and exchange with everyone here. So my name is John Mertz. I'm the founder of Santa Fe Innovates, and we are a social entrepreneur program and community, and here in New Mexico, obviously. We are joined, our two speakers are Dana Caller, who is a graduate of UNM school. I'm not sure when, but he's at least from UNM school here. He is the founder of Cactus Brewing Company and also very involved in trying to encourage businesses to be a force for good through UN 17 and other initiatives that I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about as part of his presentation. And then our second speaker is Brooke Montgomery. Brooke is the director of New Mexico State University's American Indian Business Enterprise Center and Studio G. So she's going to be talking about some of her work and some of the case studies of some of the startups that she's been working with and her work directly with a lot of the entrepreneurs out of the university and in other communities around the area. So we're very excited to get her expertise and experiences through this conference. So with that, Dana, I'll let you go if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides. And if there's anything you want to add to your background or introduction as we get started, feel free to do that. And then after your presentation, we'll do Brooks, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
Fantastic. I imagine everybody can hear me all right. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share here. And is that showing okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. Yes. Well, again, thank you for this opportunity to share my knowledge in social entrepreneurship. It's been a huge passion of mine to start talking about this and move in this direction. I've been really implementing social entrepreneurship for the past 10 years now. And as John was saying, I'm the president of Cactus Brewing Company there in Bernalillo, also president of UN 17, which is a newly formed nonprofit organization about 4 years old. That focuses on this and highly involved in the financing change grassroots initiative. So super excited to be here. My presentation is called An Ethical Revolution, Changing the Culture of Capitalism. And you'll see I kind of have like this subtitle of a study or an action. And that'll kind of make more sense as I kind of get into it. But my target audience, I really wanted it to be anyone in a leadership role. I mean, that really kind of is geared towards more business leadership, but anybody in a leadership role, industry influencers, media influencers, government agencies, government head departments, educators, and students. The fact of the matter is this conversation really stems across all organizations. And I think for us to fully understand social entrepreneurship, it's good to understand how it affects these other organizations as well. So anybody in a leadership role can see how this conversation can implement and lead to more involvement in progress within their organizations. And for industry influencers, they can see how this drives technological advancement. And I'm not just talking about computer advancement, I'm talking about data science, communication between companies or individuals, and even advances for inclusion. As far as media influencers, you'll see how this conversation is rapidly growing across the country and how it's developing global partnerships and how that's affecting the world today. And for government agencies and departments, really all of the above have an influence, but one thing that's near and dear to my heart is how do we improve wealth equality here in the United States? And I think that's a really big one. And for educators and students, the fact of the matter is everything really starts at that level, right? That's kind of ground zero for any movement, and it starts with our education. And so I think it's just incredibly important. And I'm really excited that UNM is really focusing on this area. So focusing on the definition, as you heard in the previous talks this morning, there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of organizations that are moving in the same efforts, and they just might be called different things, but really the common goal is very similar. You heard of the ESG, which is environment, social, and government, or governance, and that's really a big talk with hedge funds and capital investment. And you can see that in 2018 to 2020, just over the past 2 years, there has been a huge increase in that type of investing, literally 42% increase between those 2 years. And just last year alone, even during COVID, there was $17.1 trillion in new asset investment when looking at corporate entities that were involved in ESG movements. Then you have the SDGs. This is a big conversation with the United Nations and the 17 Goals of Sustainable Development, essentially what my nonprofit organization, UN17, is founded on. And we use those goals to teach corporate responsibility. But back in 2015, the United Nations released the concept of the 17 Goals of Sustainable Development, and it was adopted by 193 countries and tens of thousands of companies across the world. And then you have the Great Reset, which is a big conversation with the World Economic Forum. This became even a bigger conversation during COVID, and how they really want to, as we reopen the economy, move in a direction of circularity and have more alignment across borders. And so during their largest event just last year, Davos, they had over 2,782 participants in leadership roles in this conversation. And so you could see how incredibly, this conversation is growing, even though we're at the grassroots of it still, I believe there's a lot happening. And then the culture of capitalism. This is essentially just the organic definition of today's capitalist environment. And that really involves anybody that's interested in any type of capital gain, which is basically everyone, everywhere, right? So social entrepreneurship, I think that also can easily be defined as conscious capitalism, which you'll hear a lot. So I think all of these kind of combined really start to lead people to understand what social entrepreneurship is. But I do want to read to you real quick. John McKay, the founder of the Whole Foods, partnered up with Raj Sisodia, and they basically defined in a book what conscious capitalism is. And I really like their definition. And so I'm just going to read that real quick. They define conscious capitalism as a way of thinking about capitalism and business that better reflects where we are in the human journey, the state of the world today, and the innate potential of business to make positive impact on the world. So that definition really hit home for me, and I really appreciate it. So I wanted to share that to you. The fact of the matter is this conversation happens to be a very easy conversation. And the reason I say that is because it's a humanitarian effort, right? We are all human, and so we all know what it takes to better our lives and to better the lives of others. And so this has to do with solving some of our big social issues like poverty, environment, hunger, displacement, education, inclusion, borders, culture, and all these things. Now, as we break those up, that becomes an easy conversation in the sense that we all know what we need to do to make improvements, but it becomes a challenging conversation because the conversation is so extremely large, right? And so we start to tend to find people that kind of shut down when they're presented with the conversation of social entrepreneurship and what we need to do. But I just want to remind everybody that, we are not here to solve the world's issues, yet we are definitely here to make sure that we don't increase them, right? And so it's just putting one step forward. So these large conversations, are some of the things like, where does business responsibilities lie? In the private sector, and what can we do as individuals to make it better? Same thing with government roles. Where do their roles start and where do they end? Or individual involvement. This is a big one for me because it's our ethics as individuals that really grow the culture of capitalism as we move from our student ages and higher education into our careers. And that really starts to define what culture and capitalism is. And then we have to prioritize all the social and global issues that surmount from all of these conversations. So in that aspect, yes, it is a very big conversation. So going back to company leadership roles, this is something I identify with more than most. simply because I am a business owner. I've worked for myself since I was 21 years old. I've opened and closed multiple businesses, and I currently run two and help with a third. And I'm really happy to do so. So I can, I'm sure that a lot of leaders in the companies probably have the similar goals that I do. You want to generate capital gains and increase net profits. And so how does that lie in the conversation that we're having today? Well, we have proven that just last year in 2020, $17.1 trillion in asset generation was given to those companies that are focused on the ESGs. We can encourage tenureship with our employees. It's a really big one for me. And that comes from trust, care, and cooperation. Essentially, those are the founding propositions of freedom and flourish, which is essentially giving people the opportunity to be fully expressed and to live up to their highest and best potentials. And then you want to create a legacy. I hope that Cactus Brewing Company lasts forever, with or without me. And the legacy is important, and that stems from integrity and transparency, so that people know what you stand for and they can carry the torch long after that we're gone. Quality and management, which basically leads to working smarter and not harder. We all want more free time. And this creates the we mentality, right? And instead of empowering ourselves, we should be looking to educate people so that we replace ourselves. And I think that's something that we miss a lot of the time. And so we need to really focus on this we mentality as we focus on growing our companies. And we want to create a service or a product that we're extremely proud of. And when we have a product that's long lasting, it's because that product has positive results. That product or service has positive results. And so we always want to move in that direction. And then also being ahead of the game. If you want a long lasting company, then you have to see the future before it actually happens and be able to be flexible enough to take an immediate action to make adjustment. And I think the only way that we can do that is with inclusion. We have to have people from the ground level to the top and remove hierarchy as much as possible so that we can have open and honest conversations. And I think that's extremely important. And so going into industry and media influencers, I really feel like this is the foundation of our leaders in transparency. And the fact of the matter is these guys carry a lot of the risk, but at the same time, there's an immense amount of reward, right? They basically write the script, whether it's positive or negative. And when they write the script about an industry, it really gives credibility within that marketplace. And they also are the ones to be innovative and do the first product releases. And usually that either makes or breaks a company. And so it's a high risk, but could be great reward at the same time. And then you have honest research and development. And this is a really big one, right? Which I have this ethical override here. And what I mean by that is when you have honest research and development, do you have the ethics that align, if the outcomes are not what they were anticipated, are the ethics there and available to you to make the hard decisions to either start over or move on from whatever you're trying to develop there, right? I always use the pharmaceutical industry as an example of that. If you were hypothetically studying a product for 10 years and putting in millions and millions of dollars, but the outcome was something that wasn't actually going to improve somebody's health, do you still release it on the market, or do you have the ethical override to just learn from that and move on, right? And then nowadays, we all have media potential that we've never had before. We essentially are the media, each individual, essentially anybody connected to the internet. And that could be great in the fact that you can reach your goals much faster and create a bigger success rate. But that also makes us very vulnerable. But what's exciting about that too is vulnerability is what really creates change, right? All the speakers here today had to make themselves available and put the vulnerability on the table to hope to educate others in a common direction, essentially. So I bring up government because it's what we all get pretty emotional about pretty fast, and that could be good or bad, right? And I'll take a chance here, making myself vulnerable to create that change, and start and talk a little bit about how social entrepreneurship really affects all organizations, right? And if you wanted to simplify it, I simplified it into three little categories: transparency, inclusion, and education. And, you know, we're realizing that social entrepreneurship is obviously becoming a big conversation right now. And you might ask yourself why. You know, why are we so apt to want to create change now? And I think that a big part of it is just that there's been different industrial revolutions, right? We had the Industrial Revolution that was mechanical production, which is basically combustible engines. And then we went into the Industrial Revolution of age and science and mass production. And then most recently, it was the digital revolution, industrial revolution. And now we're in this fourth area, and I really feel like it is not a tangible one as the others may have been, and more of an ethical one. And funny enough, those ethics have been really led by the internet more than anything else. And I think that we can all relate to that. And so instead of continuing to define social entrepreneurship, I want to talk real briefly and use an example of the negative effects it can have if we aren't active in talking in this direction. And I would like to use the invasion of the Capitol as a prime example. And this example is not to make anybody wrong. That's not what the conversation's about. But it does point out that people were in a position where they thought that their livelihoods were at risk, right? They created such a belief that they were willing to risk their lives and the lives of others to try to create change. But the fact of the matter is we're really far from that, right? We still have an incredible democracy that is incredibly strong, and we still are the most free country in the entire world with more opportunity than anywhere else in the entire world. And I've traveled around the world, and I can tell you firsthand that this is true. And the fact of the matter is, and within that situation, we lost transparency. Right? And so when we lost transparency, it left room for propaganda and assumptions, which was really bad. And people felt like they had no inclusion, right? They felt like their efforts were exhausted and that the only thing they can do is turn to violence, which is extremely rare. And we generally do that as human beings when we have no other choice. And so the fact that they felt they had no other choice is a real big concern. And I think that concern leads to education. Right? If we were better about sharing our educational experiences on how we can generate this change, maybe that wouldn't have happened. And I'm super excited about social entrepreneurship because I think that we can put this in the forefront of our governance, and we can lead by example, and it will simply follow. And so to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like, I really believe that we cannot stand in opposition. So if you have efficacy and transparency within the private sector and you have students following, then you cannot have corrupt government systems, right? But on the flip side, if you had a corrupt private sector, then it's really challenging to see whether or not your government's corrupt because essentially they would align, right? So if we can hold ourselves true to efficacy and transparency, then the government gets forced to follow. The same thing with implementing strategies for inclusion and education. The fact of the matter is you cannot hide evidence if you're transparent, right? So we hold ourselves accountable when we allow for people within our organizations to have access to information. And innovation and progress. If you get rid of innovation and progress, you essentially suppress reward. And we have to start to have open and honest debate. And without open and honest debate, you have no education. And I think that we need to start to stem from a position where we can have an open and honest debate without such consequence, right? People get ridiculed for just trying to understand a situation for what it is. And I think really open and honest debate, and that's why we're here today, right? To really discuss what these things mean to us, whether we're right or wrong, doesn't really matter. What matters is that we bring information to the table from all aspects of life and experiences to come up with a common mission and a common goal and move in a positive direction. And so it's hard for me to tell how much time I've got. So this is my last slide, but if I have more time, I can give some examples. I'm sorry?
I think, just a couple more minutes and then, we'll hand it off to Brooke and then open it up.
Okay, fantastic. As you can tell, I'm extremely passionate about this. So 15 minutes is not long enough for me. I could really go for days. But what I wanted to, really get people excited about, and hopefully, is that we start to really create action and not just make this a study. Because the conversation is so large, it is easy to get caught up in the conversation of things. And we really need to not only learn as much as we can, but take what we learn and move it into action as soon as possible. And so if I was to sum this all up and just put my own definition to social entrepreneurship, it would be an opportunity to highlight the common goals of the people with a product or service that has a natural reward of profitability. That's supposed to say of, not or. So luckily, I've had a good experience with social entrepreneurship. I run my companies this way. I've always seen profitability follow. Earlier we had the discussion of whether or not companies are seeing profitability or if they're just giving back to the environment, things like that. We've always seen capital gain when we move in a social responsible direction. Just want to say that. But I thank you for letting me share this information with you guys.
Thank you, Dana. I really appreciate that. And I know we'll have probably a lot of questions. I really like the idea as Brooke is getting her slides up, the concept of ethical override. So it'd be interesting to kind of explore that a little bit more with you. And if you have any direct experience with that, as well as just your experiences more directly between your organizations and how you manage kind of the profit and nonprofit side of things. But Brooke, are you able to show your slides?
Yeah, I am. Actually, I was going to tell a little story first.
Okay, great, perfect. I'll let you go.
So thank you everybody for being here, and thank you Dana for those really awesome slides. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Brooke Montgomery, and I'm the director of the American Indian Business Enterprise Center and Studio G at NMSU. I wanted to just first, before I share my slides, let you know how I got into social entrepreneurship and encouraging entrepreneurship and growth. In 2014, actually, I was a public school teacher, and then I was working with a nonprofit called Engage New Mexico. And they also had a social enterprise attached to it that helped fund the nonprofit. And during that time, I was taking classes at NMSU and genetics and biotechnology. And so I would say it was about 2014 or so. My son, he was 2 years old. He had really bad asthma pretty much since he was born. He was on this nebulizer every 3 or 4 hours. And he was hospitalized because he had gotten pneumonia, which he commonly got when he was sick, I think due to his asthma. And he was actually shipped out to El Paso Children's Hospital. And it was really scary. He had restrictive airway. So they put him on a high flow therapy oxygen machine that basically forces hot, like humidified air into you at a high flow rate. So it's just pushing air into the lungs. And this is a step before being ventilated. So some people are a little more familiar with the ventilator now because of COVID. So it was a situation similar to that. And he had like 104-degree fever, and I was really scared. And he was on this machine, and the machine was accumulating water inside of the oxygen tube, which they call the circuit. And it was because it was hot, and then they were trying to give him albuterol, like steroid medicine, constantly. And when it was going into an adapter that was cool, the adapter actually kind of looked like this. It was filling up with water, and then when he would move, and he was just 2 years old, it would actually flush the water up his nose at a really high pressure rate. And that caused him to like just wake up, and like it was almost like if you're jumping in a pool and the water goes up your nose. And it was just happening every time he moved. And so I was frustrated because he had pneumonia, and I was scared that what if it caused aspiration or caused it to get worse? And what if, this caused more problems for him? And so I asked the doctor, and the doctor had said to keep a napkin. The directions just say to keep a napkin nearby. So I started unplugging the tube, the oxygen, from the adapter and like pouring it out. And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, what if we just fixed this machine and just added a filter, which seems kind of simple at the time. So I thought, well, if they would just filter the water out, then it wouldn't go, up his nose like this. And he did. He was there for 8 days, and just so you know, he got better, and he's actually doing very well. He's 9.5 now. So so during that time, I thought about this, and he got better, and I went back to school, and I went to the university and said, I want to create this. I want to make a filter to attach to the machine, and I want to filter the water out and see if it works. And so they said, okay. So I had gotten some contacts from the hospital when he was there, and they gave me an old machine to use. And I said, well, how am I, like this regular person, going to go and invent a medical device? And it just seemed kind of far-fetched at the time. But they were able to help me find different resources at Studio G, like CAD designers. So we made my first model. They linked me with patent attorneys who helped me do prior art searches. And I was able to actually print my first prototypes on 3D printers. They didn't actually work, but because water would spurt out of them, but they were good models, and I was able to file a patent. And that was a big endeavor for me because it was a bunch of steps of learning and growing and understanding that you can actually take something and fix it and help society. And I think that that was where it was like, what can I do next to make it so this can actually get to the hospitals, can actually get to patients and help them? So then I got a grant to test this at Los Alamos National Labs. And I actually did a national I-Corps where I learned that if I were to add to the device a way of like adding nebulized medication into the filter while it went into a cup, it would drain the water out and deliver medicine to the patient. So I wrote my second patent, which just actually got issued a couple weeks ago. And so I'm writing my third. And I was able to get a prototype that worked from Navajo Tech University with their advanced manufacturing facility. So I actually have not spent any money of my own, and I have no equity that is into this. And I was able to get patents, develop and create a medical device, and hopefully get it out there to help save patients and help people. So when doing that, I shifted my path from teaching to how do I use that teaching skill to help students, and became the director of Studio G to help student entrepreneurs. And I'm going to share my slide now and just kind of, let's see, how do I present? 1 second. And show you what we offer, and also how we started the American Indian Business Enterprise Program. 1 second. Okay, John, can you see this?
Yeah, it's up now.
Okay, thank you. So this is the 2 programs I'm the director of. When I first came after having the idea of the filter, I went to Studio G, and we emphasize on helping students, and also with the American Indian Business Enterprise, Native American entrepreneurs who are community members and recent graduates of colleges across the whole state of New Mexico, start their own businesses. So this, creating transformation through entrepreneurship. We start with supporting them, providing access and resources, and helping them grow, and hopefully growing our, community and bettering society through this. So entrepreneurship training, we provide things like free business curriculum, including but not limited to finance, market research, product market, access. So like I said, these things were just things very much out of my reach, and I was able to access patent attorneys, national labs, and working with other universities such as UNM and Navajo Tech University to get prototypes, to get CAD designs, and to make this actually a reality. So what I did when I joined Studio G, I started working there, and I wrote a grant for the Minority Business Development Agency to leverage Studio G's resources to help Native American community members. And first I wrote the grant so that we would help Native American student entrepreneurs. During the pandemic, we grew this program to reach all community members because there was a huge need to help other community members besides students. So then for the resources, we do, networking, helping you build teams, learning from each other, and one-on-one and business advising. So I just wanted to show some case studies that John had mentioned earlier, just 5 of our clients, our members. So the first one is Janeta Finale. Some of you may know her because she's a beautiful musician, and she's also a social entrepreneur. She joined AIBE I think maybe a month or two after the shutdown, after the pandemic. And it was hard because she was, she was performing in concerts and you couldn't do that anymore. And she was home taking care of her family, her children and her parents. And she was looking for other avenues of entrepreneurship, as many were. And she actually had an idea that she wanted to patent for Plushie Stash, which is a unique tool to helping children with anxiety and PTSD, and to help even adults. And this also was something that we discussed in our research that could help soothe children and adults who are on the autism spectrum. And I won't go too much into it because she's in the process of patenting the idea, but it was something she thought about during the pandemic with children being home and people feeling isolated, and how this actually could help community members. And I will say that the idea is indigenous and is culturally representative of Dene. And it's something that hopefully can help across Navajo Nation and beyond. And she wants to manufacture it in her community. She also is writing a children's book called No Word for Goodbye. And this book is about grief because it's culturally appropriate. It's a Navajo children's book about grief to help children, especially during this pandemic, it's been so prevalent, to be able to cope with this type of grief. So I just put on the side some resources that you can read while I'm talking, but she participated in Financial Business Basics course through the American Indian Business Enterprise. We've partnered with people across the state to provide more resources. So we're always open to everybody here. I tried to write down in the chat people that were on here to help provide resources. So with Financial Business Basics course, we're partnering with New Mexico Community Capital based in Albuquerque, and providing each person who participates with a 2-week course on both personal and business finances. And then they get a Chromebook, some books on financial planning and a planner, and they get a $1,200 stipend to help their business. So she did that. And then Christine Serrano, she actually is with the Isleta Pueblo. And during this time, they've really struggled, especially with one of, many of you know that a lot of the casinos had to be shut down during the pandemic. And some of the casinos really were what funded the community. So she was given 500 acres, I believe, and she's going to take the first 100 acres and grow an alfalfa farm. And she is doing this to promote self-sufficiency, to improve quality of life, and to preserve the cultural identity of the Pueblo. Her long-term vision is to foster a program for training youth, sustaining elders, and removing the threat of food insecurities on the Pueblo for the next 7 generations. She also gave me a little video to share, and I'm going to share only a minute of it because I don't know how much time I have. To navigate screens really quick. So she shared this, she wanted to share with you.
We believe that in order to know who you are, you need to know where you come from. We are the Tiguas of Isleta del Sur Pueblo. Our Pueblo's name, Isleta del Sur, means island of the south. We are the descendants of our forefathers who first came to this land in 1680. The continued practice of our language, culture, songs, dances, ceremonies, and self-reliance is the legacy we leave behind for our children and future generations to come. The annual thing.
So that was 1 minute. She participated in one of what we call our 5-week accelerators. They're called sprints, in the Ag Sprint, which is based on a group of those who are in agricultural businesses. And Rachel, I noticed she was in my chat. If you have any questions, she can answer. Rachel is our coordinator, and she can answer questions in the chat while I'm sharing the slide. So, and then we have Lane. And Lane actually has a book coming out teaching to every kid's potential. She has a PhD in cognitive neuroscience, and she actually has opened up during this time, during the pandemic, a learning center that's what I would say not traditional of schools that we commonly see. And so the learning center takes non-traditional approaches to teaching for every type of learner. And she does have, actually, she's open and she has people going. She's located in Española. And so we've helped her with financial advising, marketing, media, and getting interns. And then Jason's a UNM student, so I definitely wanted to include him in this. He's really great. He started off a couple years back with an app called Parental Values, which was to help, and he was focusing with Native American communities, but for everyone, but he does focus on Native American parents. With this, he was originally looking for a fitness tracker and looking at how active children are to help decrease childhood obesity and watch how often they are on like social media and have those type of trackers, and also help prevent or stabilize diabetes. And this actually has grown over the last few years. So he is looking at ways to help decrease violence against Indigenous women. On Monday, we're actually, I believe it's Monday, Rachel's in the chat, she can tell you. We have a lunch that he's having with some of our Native American women who are going to give him feedback on his business. So he has a social entrepreneurship business, and he's connecting with us to help grow that so that it's like fitting what the needs are. With this app, he's working with Verizon to look at where there's gaps in Verizon and broadband. And so these are areas, I guess, that are more trafficking occurs and more violence against women. And he can explain it as well. If you want to contact him, contact me. But he is using that with Verizon to find out where they can map out data gaps in order to provide broadband and more Verizon wireless in those locations. And I know people are chatting, but I can't read it while I'm doing this. So hopefully your questions are being answered. The last one, he's actually one of our Burrell College medical students. He's in his 3rd year. And he formed a group with medical students across the United States of America, and they're all over. They've been meeting with me, and they wanted to get together to, I guess you could say, stop the spread of inaccurate information about COVID and increase awareness of the vaccine. So he wanted to do counter, information that might not be scientifically accurate, and especially on social media. And so the students from all over are getting together, and they're forming what they want to do is a social enterprise and a nonprofit combined. So they're forming that entity, and they're getting out there and they're trying to spread accurate information. And I think that's my last one. Those were the 5 I wanted to share. This is some of the stuff that was written on the right. We had one-on-one advising, free business training, access to a network. Our networks are actually, I think there's like 50 professionals. So there's like accountants, patent attorneys, they're free. You get 30-minute sessions as many times as you like if you join. So there's engineers, there's a lot of different advisors that we have. And we put this together just so you know, New Mexico Community Capital and us, we're putting on another financial business basic course in a couple weeks. We're almost there. And we are going to have also a Native sprint, just like the Ag Sprint and the other accelerators, but this one will be for Native American businesses. And we wrote a grant with the Native American Agricultural Fund, and we are going to teach Native youth about cattle and sheep ranch management plans. And that'll be in June, end of June, early July. We're still getting the dates down. We're partnering with Navajo Tech University for that. And there will be, sorry, I think someone had asked this, but then I shared my screen again and can see. We do have speakers from different like that will come in to teach the kids and teach in a culturally representative way. So depending on who joins, we will have different speakers for every child. One interventor, oh, sorry, with that IDI core. This actually is for anyone who has a STEM related business, but I put that in there. Jason was a part of it at UNM. They do that. He does the regular core. And that's it, I think. Oh, we have lots of people. And there's Rachel's in the chat. There's her email if you want to ask her more questions. And here's mine. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Brooke. So we have a smaller group, so we can definitely, if you want to have a question to ask, you can just unmute and ask it. We did have a question kind of during it from Garima Sharma to you, Brooke. How are the resources and courses organized to appreciate Indigenous ways of knowing and being?
So every course is a little different. So with FBB, everybody who teaches is Native American. But if we have applicants who are from certain tribal affiliations, we invite speakers and we do pay the speakers. So if you want to be one, reach out to us. We do. So every time we have a networking event, Rachel usually arranges them. But when we have a guest speaker, we pay them. So everybody, is paid. And then, so with the students, with the youth one, we're inviting anyone. So we want to make sure, even if they're outside of New Mexico, that one can go further, that we will invite speakers to make sure it's culturally appropriate. For New Mexico business, New Mexico Community Capital for the Financial Business Basic course, every teacher, again, is Native. On our advising network, we have gained more mentors who are Native American, and we're also welcoming more if you'd like to join. And we also have people who are not Native American in that. So it's a mix of people all over the state and beyond the state for advisors.
So do you try to incorporate any of the tribal values, I guess, as part of the entrepreneurship program, or does that just come naturally from the participants?
Yeah, we do. Everybody is we're very open for everybody speaking. And I would say generally though, it's about being open about our own values, our own belief systems, inviting our ancestors, and encouraging everybody to feel, in a safe place to talk about their experiences, and why it's important. Culturally, everybody has come in so far. It's been important to give back to the community. So it's, even though we may be making money off our entrepreneurship, efforts, we're always talking about how we're giving back.
Yeah, that's great. Questions from the audience. You can either put them in the chat or unmute and ask them. While we're waiting for someone to raise their hand or jump in, Dana, going back to you. Or go ahead. There was a question.
I have a video. They asked for the video, and I'm putting in there.
Okay. So Dana, you manage obviously a for-profit business, but then you also have a nonprofit. So how do you balance kind of between the two, I guess, but also what are some of the similarities, if you will, between those two types of organizations that you run and lead?
Yeah, John, thank you so much for that question. Actually, fantastic question, because the fact of the matter is if we reach our goal in this social entrepreneurship and people are really motivated to move that direction, then there almost won't be a very huge difference, right? I mean, hopefully, so with the nonprofit organization, we chose to go that direction because it really allows us to acquire research and development money a little bit more easily. And so the grant writing potentials are there. And the fact of the matter is sometimes depending on how you structure your businesses will allow people to basically understand them a little bit more and build faster credibility. And so that's really the direction of like a nonprofit versus a for-profit. But what I would love to prove in our efforts is that a for-profit company could generate an incredible amount of social well-being and social good and still reap the financial benefits of it. And with that said, I mean, because of that, I mean, at some point, I'm hoping that nonprofit and for-profit almost are a total marriage, right? And to give it a quick example of that, we are in the town of Bernalillo, right? Small environment. And we really were suffering from a lack of employment, right? We couldn't get people that were, funny enough, you don't even need experience to pour beer. Like, we happen to be an environment where I can hire you if you've never had a job before and you have absolutely zero experience. But we were still dealing with the fact that people were still not qualified to work, which is incredible, right? Meaning, like, they really didn't even know how to apply for a job. They would show up in sweats, or they would do an interview, but they had to have their girlfriend with them at the time. And just really interesting things that made it really challenging for us to hire people in the community. And so we could have looked at that and done nothing about it. And it's like the risk versus reward, right? What we chose to do is we started the Kiwanis Club. We brought a Kiwanis Club called the Kiwanis of Greater Bernalillo. And we called it Greater Bernalillo because we're surrounded by the Pueblos as well. And so we wanted them to be involved. And so this Kiwanis Club is a big focus on helping students to graduate, get them all the way through at least the last years of high school, so that we have some employment pool to pull from. And so we had to weigh out, well, what is the risk rate? What do we do? Nothing, and then we realize that we have no employees, and we can't function as a business? Or do we invest our funds in a direction that will solve the problem? And funny enough, in that experiment, so we invested that, and because people were so excited about that conversation, it actually brought more business in. So that was kind of like the unintended plus, right? It was definitely not a consequence. It was like this perk that we ended up receiving for just doing the right thing, and so that's just like kind of one example of being able to invest back into the community and see the positive results.
Yeah, that's great. Eric, you had a question? You want to unmute and ask it?
Yeah, sure thing. So, and sort of a similar question to the last one for you, John, actually, and also probably for Brooke. The Santa Fe Innovates, you recently, well, feels recent, finished your first cohort with the accelerator. I'm wondering, for the folks who are doing social impact ventures, what lessons learned did you see over the course of that, and maybe over at Studio G as well, as far as how that kind of work is different, whether it's a mindset or something else, in terms of how they're thinking about and putting together their ventures?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I can start, Brooke, then if you want to jump in with your experiences from Studio G. I think, from our experience with the first cohort, you've got to get the fundamentals of the startup down first, because if you can't figure out the business model, the impact model is not going to matter as much. So there needs to be definitely a focus on that, but while weaving in some of the social impact and how to do both. And B Corp, the B Lab, provides a model through their assessment tool to think about as a startup. It's a little overwhelming for a startup, but at least gives you kind of a mindset that you can start to develop as you're working through your business model. I think the other lesson that I've learned, maybe it's more Santa Fe specific than around New Mexico, but we've got to spend a lot more time on earlier entrepreneurial development and getting that combination of social impact and profit going earlier, so that people come into programs with co-founders or at least a small team, so that they're working on it more than just as a solo person. So those are my two things anyway. Brooke, what's been your experiences or thoughts?
I think the heart of our clients has been very impactful to community members. Even our young students, when they come in, they come in with an attitude of wanting to give back. I don't often see them coming and going, I just want to become a billionaire. And I feel like that's part of our culture here in New Mexico. We're not, in some ways it's hard with access and that impact investing that we'll get into, right? Because we're spread out, because we're not in like the Silicon Valley or these big cities, but in some ways it's nice because we're not in that aggressive, it's just about the money capitalism type, value system. And so I see students coming in wanting to give back, not wanting to charge. And sometimes they almost price themselves because they want to help the community. But we talk about that in the startup process that, you know, John is talking about. You have to be able to sustain your business too. So don't go too low. It's almost like the opposite. They don't want to go, they don't want to, you know, they want people to have access and they want to help their community. They just want to provide something, but they have to be able to stay afloat. So we say, hey, wait a minute, you're giving everybody something for free. What do we need to, you know, do to make sure that you're staying, you're able to stay in business to continue giving this or to grow, right? And so it's interesting that I don't see that value system where, you know, where it's just, I don't want to give back. I'm seeing it actually more the other way, where they do, especially with women. But you know what? Like the two examples I showed you, it's with women and men.
Yeah, that's great. Devin, do you have a question? Do you want to unmute, Devin?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I was just wondering about the definitions around social entrepreneurship. One of the things I noticed is that there's a lot of focus on like medicine and environment, and those are like, and those sort of the impact basically. So I'm coming from this perspective, two perspectives. One is the arts and working with the arts and trying to create an arts company that, you know, that works, that keeps that sort of community arts vibe while also scaling up. And that being sort of the social impact, just keeping the community culture intact. And then the other side of it is the nonprofits trying to come up with a business model that, you know, may not be particularly, or the business model that benefits the nonprofits. And so does some of the social components, some of the more like social impact components would be as how the business benefits the nonprofits. So I'm like wondering, like, when you're sort of selling those components of this is a social enterprise, but it's not within those sort of easily quantifiable sort of, it's helping people with medicine or it's helping people with the environment. Like, how do you sort of frame that? Is it hard to frame that kind of thing? Or I don't know if that.
Yeah, so kind of the question, yeah, so if you're in health and there's some social entrepreneurships or social enterprises that are more it's clearly evident, I guess, as far as the impact in the business model, and others that may be less clear. So how do you get that message across? Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's kind of the essence of it.
Yeah. Dana or Brooke, you just want to start with that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And you know, that's what's interesting about this conversation is with climate change, for example, you know, it makes it hard to, it seems less tangible for people like us that are really on a smaller scale of business, right? Really homegrown businesses versus like these really large manufacturers that all they have to do is change like an energy process and all of a sudden they made this huge impact on the world. And so I see like when the World Economic Forum, the ESGs, the SDGs, you know, with the United Nations, they talk on these grand scales, but you're absolutely right, Devin. I mean, there's this incredible missed opportunity at the ground level. And that's, I think, why I'm extremely excited to talk to this group today, because how do we frame these things in a fashion? And B corporations, as John pointed out, you know, that's almost like that first step of kind of combining the concept of what is a nonprofit organization and what is a for-profit organization and how can they mend together, right? So that's almost our first kind of form, like a B corporation is almost that first form to pull these two together. But to give an example, I mean, social entrepreneurship comes, another example I had is we had one of my leading servers was working for me for 3 years, just a fantastic server. And all of a sudden they started to work less and less, and not by hours. I mean, they just weren't showing up, you know, they were having a lot of troubles. Their customer service went down. And I was able to take a moment to actually talk with them. And what came to find out, it wasn't really their work environment. What was happening is they had personal issues that were really arising, and it was coming from financial strain, right? And I would have never known this had I not been able to just take the time to really speak with them. And it brought to my attention that we can offer a microloan, essentially a no interest loan, which is basically just a payment, you know, a check up front. to get them. And really all they needed was $500 and pull them out of this strain. And all of a sudden their work ethic came back as their stress kind of reduced. And I kind of point that out because you're right. I mean, as people are talking about these huge issues, like how can you bring it down, like in the arts? I mean, culture, that's our foundation here in New Mexico, right? Santa Fe, Taos, some of our, our capitals were founded upon the arts. And it's so important to be able to implement these things in not only a way that provides for what our goal is, right? That social responsibility and cultural growth, but also profitability. And for the first time, I think if we're successful in this conversation, I feel like, again, I just kind of keep reiterating, and we may be a few years away from it, but I really do feel that when we start businesses with those ethics in mind from the very beginning, it just happens naturally where the profitability follows the social good of the company. And it's a compounding effect, and it draws the attention that it needs to be successful.
Yeah, a tool to mention, I know we're probably gonna be going back to the big group here in a second too, but if you Google theory of change, I mean, just like Lean Canvas has kind of become the standard, if you will, for what new startups work through to figure out their, what problem they're solving and the solution to making sure there's a business model to support it. Theory of change kind of provides a way to make sure that you're having an impact and what impact you want to have, and to define that clearly as part of your venture. So I would, if you Google that, there's definitely a couple of good frameworks that will come up, and it'll be maybe helpful, I guess, as far as for your organization in particular to think about some of those questions, and it may help kind of define and refine the impact that you want to have.
Thanks for that.
Paul, I think, are we about ready to go back, or do we have time for one more question, or where are we at?
I think Wellington just messaged the whole group that he wants us back. I wanted to see if Brooke, if you had anything to say before we head back. Brooke, I bet you and your team have thought about the question as well.
I think it's very important, Devin, culture and art, and maintaining that. And another aspect that we try to focus on is manufacturing here and within our own communities. So when you're keeping your art and your culture and your manufacturing within your community, you are helping the community thrive. So I do believe that, maybe more research needs to be done in the university, but it is a form of social entrepreneurship. And when I worked at Engage New Mexico, we were a nonprofit. We had an social enterprise called WeRT, totally different. Engage was to help education, cradle to career education, but the social enterprise was fixing computers. That money funneled to support our efforts. So sometimes they're two separate, they don't even seem relatable, but it's funding the community effort, like Dana had said earlier. So, but I think keeping things local is another, entrepreneur, sorry, it benefits our community.
Well, thank you, Brooke and Dana, for your presentations and your insights, and really for the community here with your questions and interest and engagement around this topic. I think social entrepreneurship is such a great fit for New Mexico, and hopefully we can gain more traction through convenings like this. So really appreciate your time.
Mr. Allen, how do you think we're doing so far?
I think we're doing spectacularly well. Yeah.
Not too shabby, huh?
Oh, not too shabby at all. I really have enjoyed I thought by now I would have some kind of fatigue, you know what I mean? But it's not, I know it's gonna settle some time in the afternoon, but so far I've just been super duper engaged. Oh God, I was on Zoom.
I wish we could be in person, but given that we can't, boy, it sure is a great group of humans, isn't it?
It is really wonderful group of humans. Yeah. Like the jacket, by the way.
Maybe the last time that you and I see each other in jacket for a long time. I don't know.
You know what?
It's good to know this side of each other, right?
I'm taking a screenshot of this. Oh man, it really is good to know this side of each other.
It's really fun to work with you. If you want to do more of this, I'm going to be on the lookout for more of this, just so you know.
Yes, please. Yes,
Yeah.
please. It's really, yeah. See, I'd already signed up to attend the whole symposium, right? And so having something to do also makes it even doubly awesome. Like, okay, now I really have to be there. Like, I'm gonna be there, but now I have to be there. It's like,
I'm so glad it worked out for you, and this space is growing. I mean, it's growing fast in New Mexico. Really, I mean, New Mexico's growing really fast because of Netflix and the movie thing, and Facebook is coming, and now all this aerospace money's coming in. But the social entrepreneurs are finding each other, and so we knew the tech was growing, but the social entrepreneurs are finding each other. So it's really fun right now, and it's just I wish it wasn't COVID, but still, it's like it's really good time to be here.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, sounds like a good time to come back.
If you do, let me know. I mean, whichever, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, wherever you wind up, they're not far from each other, but let me know how I can help.
Yeah, let me try one or two things here. I was really intrigued by one of I think it was Devin Hoffman. He's doing an arts kind of social entrepreneurship thing.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
I didn't. I just got the smallest sense of it, but I didn't really. Yeah, very interested.
very interesting. I want to check it out because that's what I want to move into. I mean, I haven't said this out loud for many people, but I want to write. If I could spend the rest of my entire life writing stories and books and publishing and sharing them with people, that's exactly what I'd like to do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so, yes, I enjoy business. Yes, there are always things that I really have interest in. But writing, writing, and of course, speaking is a part of writing too. The writing where I've read so many things in my life that have really changed the way I see the world and life, right? And I mean, you just realize how impactful these things are when you write them down, right? I mean, in the olden days, it was called magic, right? I remember, I don't know if this is true or not, but there's actually a story, I think it's an American story, right? About this Native American father and daughter, and they learned to write and they wanted to write their own language. Then they came back to the elders to teach them this writing thing. And they told them that, and the elders were like, so you mean to say that we could tell you something here and you could do your magic on this paper thing that you have. And then your daughter could come and tell us what we told you when she wasn't there. And he was like, yeah. I said, okay, take her outside over there. Then they brought her back and she read everything. They're like, whoa, magic.
How cool is that? Hey, Marianne.
Yeah, Marianne.
Do you have a good lunch?
I did.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Where are you located again, Marianne?
I'm in Santa Fe.
You're in Santa Fe. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to reel Alan back. He used to live in New Mexico and he went to Arizona for grad school, and now we're seeing if we could reel him back into New Mexico. So.
Where did you go to grad school?
ASU. So WP Carey, MBA.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. My undergrad was at St. John's College in New Mexico, though.
Oh,
Santa Fe, yep.
Yeah, Santa Fe. Yeah.
sorry if you guys hear baby crying. There's like a little, I think my little toddler fell, but Dad has.
Uh, welcome to COVID era, right? And parenting, right?
Yes.
Cool. We'll give it just another minute or two and see if others come to our group here. What did everybody eat for lunch? I had lentil and spinach stew.
Ooh, that sounds so good.
It was really good.
The leftover Niçoise salad.
Oh, nice. What do you have for lunch, Alan?
I had cereal for lunch.
Cereal. You got to give us more details. What kind of cereal?
I had a granola cereal with some flakes and some honey and almond milk. And yeah, so for me, that's just like, I need some fiber and I need a quick lunch.
Seriously, I hear ya.
Yeah, and then I'm having a smoothie right here with a bunch of fruits and peanut butter powder. So
Mm.
Nice. Cool. Well, again, just a quick reminder of the questions and then we'll take off. The questions again are, what drew me to this topic?
mm,
We're the dedicated social entrepreneur group here, right? What do I want to learn? And who do I want to meet? Any thoughts on any of those?
mm.
There's Eric. Hey, Eric, welcome back from lunch. I just ran through the 3 questions again. Again, the 3 questions are, what drew me to this topic, this being the social entrepreneur group? What do I want to learn? And who do I want to meet?
So is that for, has everybody else already gone or?
No, we're just
Okay,
getting
sweet, sweet, sweet.
started. So yeah, if people want to say like your name, kind of anything about your role, and those are our questions. And it really is, this is kind of unconference time.
Sweet. I'm glad to jump in and share. What the heck? So let's see. My name's Eric Whitmore. Good to meet you all. Let's see. And I've been involved with different aspects of economic development and community building in New Mexico, primarily around tech and media, but also startups and small business for, I don't know, a good 15 or so years. The reason I'm interested in this topic and this room and this event is because this theme of social impact, the reason why people are doing the business, has been mentioned by a lot of different panelists, is something I've heard and felt from entrepreneurs throughout New Mexico, all along. But there hasn't been a really necessarily good mechanisms or stories or structures to help those kinds of entrepreneurs. So that's why I'm really interested in this topic. And I probably skipped a couple of things, but that feels like a starting point. I'm meeting many of the people that I wanted to meet. There's some events and activities that I kind of want to see if people might be interested in. So I've been mostly doing that on LinkedIn on the side as the symposium's been going on. But thank you.
Cool. And Andrea, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
All right, so I guess I'm going to jump in. Please feel free to jump in and help answer those 3 questions. Nice to meet you, Eric. What drew me to this topic? It's been a question of mine for the longest time, just how we can do good with business. In my mind, business is supposed to do good, and of course, the challenge sometimes is we come up with this great idea because there's a gap in the market, but maybe it exploits human nature in a negative way, right? And those were just some of the things that I had as quibbles as I was, trying to jump in the world of entrepreneurship. After my undergrad, I thought to myself, what can I do with a philosophy degree? I don't want to go into academia. So I guess I'm going to have to start my own business and figure that out, right? That's what I was thinking. And it was really fun for me to just commit to that and figure out what needs are there and how to meet them. and then the question of how can I actually do good. And so I've tried several businesses and business models along the way. At one time, we were doing plastic to diesel and then plastic to electricity in Zimbabwe. And for us, the idea was we get some of the homeless kids on the street to collect plastic, to bring it to us, and then we figure out a way of paying them. And then along the way, we would partner with the Ministry of Youth or whatever, of housing, and would figure out a way of housing them and then rehabilitating them in some particular way, right? So figuring all these things out, and so various business models and so on. So what I'd like to learn for sure is really how to do it sustainably. All these businesses that I've tried were all experiments, right? And funding ran out for this one failed, things happen, you know, and it's just like, how do we do this sustainably so we run on profit as much as we're doing good, right? Like a real business does. How do I want to meet collaborators? Right now I'm working on writing as a way of impacting the world. And so people would like to move in that space of changing the world through entertainment, ideas that change lives, ideas to live by, right? So arts, but collaborators, so.
And Stacey, Andrea, if you missed them, I'll just read the 3 questions again. This is kind of unconference time, and we came up with these 3 questions just to try to help. What drew me to this topic? What do I want to learn? And who do I hope to meet?
I assume need to answer that, Paul?
We'd love to hear from you, Stacey. Yes.
So I just typed in those questions. Had to type fast though. That was quick. I got them. What drew me to this topic? Well, like Eric and several other people in this room, a bunch of us are involved in helping start community organizations and help connect people to information and resources. So that's why this one in particular, I've been a member of or been involved with the American Business Society. What is it? American Sustainable Business Council. And they have a whole bunch of groups that they'll tie you to where you can invest your money in healthy organizations. So I thought, I know quite a bit about that, or I've seen a lot of that. So this was more about local to me and meeting all of you locally that are doing things to help connect. What do I intend to learn? Just to sit, hear what everybody's doing, what they're involved with. Where are some new things that are happening? I thought I would I'm going to start following Eric. He's always starting meetup groups. He's going to laugh. I was thinking of starting a sustainable business meetup group here to replace what was the Green Chamber, because that went away for Albuquerque. And I talked to them. It doesn't sound like they were going to start a new one to replace the old one. So I thought, well, meetup's fairly simple to get something going. So, and it would be to do things like all that. The crazy thing about sustainable business, it's not just everybody that I know thinks it's green or solar. No, it's all these other things about creating healthy work environments, diversity, etc. So who do I want to meet? I would love to meet all of you. So there you go. Thank you. I'll mute myself before my wife gets in here and tells me, mute yourself.
I can go next. My name is Mary Ann, and my partner and co-founder and I, this past December, launched an online general store. And our mission is kind of twofold. We're wanting to make it really easy for people to stock up on Southwest produced dry goods. And at the same time, we really want to shift economic power back to growers and makers in our region. So what drew me to this topic is, we really want to be social entrepreneurs, and we have lots and lots of questions, and we have lots and lots of things to learn about what that means. You know, from navigating being a for-profit business versus being a nonprofit business, to kind of understanding how we can really listen to our community as part of significant structure to our business. And so what do we want to learn? Oh my gosh, I've already learned so much. I filled like 2 pieces of papers with notes. I don't know. I mean, I feel really grateful to be here, and really we're just wanting to learn about, you know, how can we be social entrepreneurs and show up in a way that would be attractive to possible investors, but also keep integrity with like our mission and what we want to do. Who do we want to meet? Really, I mean, I want to meet other entrepreneurs that are kind of thinking about these same things, collaborators, advisors, mentors. So I'm really thankful to be here.
And Paul, if I can add one other thing, since you just reminded me of it. I'm the director of the UNM Small Business Institute, where we help local businesses, especially entrepreneurs. If you need help with a marketing plan, we'll assign you to a class or assign a group of students to work with you over the semester. So if you go to Small Business Institute at UNM, you can sign up for that. It's a great resource for the local community. CNM has something similar with if you need a website, they'll help you do that with their Media Lab. The CFA Society, which I believe is one of the sponsors for this, they're looking to help small businesses with doing more financial planning. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the colleges here to help support you. If you need a student intern, I'm always happy to help connect you to some of those folks. And then I host NM Netlinks, a website, and I have on there a list of all the sustainable business organizations I've heard about. There's about 30 groups. There's 4,000 links to everything going on in the state on that free website. But anyway, so I'm kind of helping connect people. That's what I do. And happy, yeah, I'll put some links in here. So thank you. Yeah, I am really excited about helping support this kind of initiative to help. You know, New Mexico should be at the lead of all this. You know, we should be the forerunners of sustainable business. Come on, how do we do that? I don't want to be on the bottom or the top of every bad list and the bottom of every good list. Let's be at the top of every good list. Let's start that. Did I say that right? I got the right direction. Okay. I'm confusing myself.
Paul, what were the prompt questions?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Paul, good to see you. If anybody doesn't know, Paul Mitchell is Genevieve's husband, friend, and impact investor extraordinaire. 3 questions, Paul, are what drew me to this topic? You're in the social entrepreneur room. What do I want to learn? And who do I want to meet?
Yeah, so yeah, as Paul mentioned, we've been doing alternative investments for probably 15 years or so. I really have a feel that we've got to be doing money different. We've got to be doing capital different. I have grandchildren, and I wonder, you know, what am I going to leave for them? What is this world? And I really firmly believe that we create the world by the way we handle the money that runs through our hands. And social entrepreneurship is a way to create things in the world other than just creating more profit, more, you know, more. Really interested today. I think the speaker has been tremendous, and just learning what the things people are thinking about, you know, what people are doing, obviously, but, you know, what's the thought process going on out there, and how do we make the shift? The thing I've been really playing with lately is, you know, maybe capital is not the answer. Maybe capital is the problem. And, you know, financial capital is, it's not real. I mean, it's something we've made up by our agreements. It's not real like the earth and the sky and the water, but humans have these agreements that have created this thing called financial capital, and it rules the way we do things, and it rules the inequalities, the concentration of wealth. And so if we can create this, how can we recreate it? What are the agreements that we need to change so that the resources that we have are funneled into socially responsible ways, creating community, creating equity, bringing, again, creating the world that I'd like my grandkids to grow up in. And so that's why I'm here, and interested in all the great people thinking great things out there.
I can go next if I'm the last one, I think, or maybe. My name is Andrea Levis. Hello, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Okay, awesome. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting this for entrepreneurs and people that are trying to make a difference in the world. I've learned so much as well. And I wanted to make a real quick comment on Mr. Stacy Sacco's tie. I think that's a pretty cool tie that you have on there. I just noticed while you were talking. And also kudos to Alan and his entrepreneurship ventures out there, where he was talking about having the kids go out and do things and feel like they're adding, they're giving to the community in that way, and that you have programs for them and for the youth. And I think that is incredible, because when we get together and to make the world a better place through entrepreneurship, through social programs, I think that's incredible, because we're making a difference. And not only are we being able to move the community forward with these initiatives and able to make jobs, create jobs, but we're also able to make an impact on the world. And I also love how, sir, I forget your name, Paul? Is it Paul? Okay, I love how he said he wants to make a better world for his grandkids, and this is our why, right? Real quickly, my name is Andrea Levis, and I am a visual story artist. I help small businesses tell their story through powerful, compelling video. I am a junior at the University of New Mexico, and I am moving forward with entrepreneurship and getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts, so I can be able to effectively bring people's stories to the forefront and to share, if it's a nonprofit, if it's a for-profit, if it's a initiative to, get our community going again now that COVID has kind of slowed things down, but we're able to get together and tell our stories to the world. So yes, and Mr. Stacy Sacco, I'm very interested in being able to, I would like to help people that can afford to make a video. I want to be able to do that for companies that are making a difference. I would love to help in that way. And I'm also interested in seeing how I can help interns possibly get future jobs with our company. The company is called, I don't know if I'm supposed to mention it, but that's kind of what I'm doing. And so grateful to be here with all of you and sharing how we can help the community together and our businesses to make the biggest impact.
So Andrea, I'll post my links, but I'm connected to about 5 groups you all might want to hear about, especially with you. Creative, what is it, Coffee Plus Creatives by Cardio. Is it Joe Cardio? He's got this great Facebook page to connect you to the creative community. And there's so many of those. I'll put that in the Facebook.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the tie is from a museum. I always buy museum ties when I go to museums. Plus I did the birds thing, and I kept saying, I'm an eagle. That's what you want to be. And everybody said, no, you're a peacock. So I got a peacock tie. I'm just an eagle wannabe, It's hilarious. So thank you. I love.
You can be both when you need to be.
Yeah, I want to be an eagle. Forget the peacock. But anyway.
Andrea, I would love for you to put your link. the podcast that I'm the host of has an associated community of about 290 social entrepreneurs all around the world. And I can imagine that your services might be really interesting to some of our members. So if you have any of your work or website, I'd love for you to put it in the link. And this is very much, this is a networking time. So anybody can put any links that feel relevant for your work. But certainly, Andrea, I think there are people in our community that'd be very interested in hearing what you're doing.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. I will definitely post that.
And just so everybody knows, we're going to be invited back in about a minute. So if go ahead and get those links into the chat. And thank you everybody for sharing the airtime and such great resources. Really appreciate it.
Tracy, would it be possible to put your email address possibly? So
I put my email in there if that's what you're asking about me.
oh yes, okay, perfect.
And then I have NMNet links, my website. And
Well, welcome everyone. I see John's here. I'm just looking for Alex before we start.
There's John. There's John.
Oh, do you see Alex?
We were just chatting. He was asking if John could go first, but I don't see him here yet. A couple of people were having a little bit of trouble finding the breakout room option. Hopefully he wasn't one of them. He was here. I know he was here.
Yeah, we can wait another minute.
Okay.
Well, maybe in the interest of time, I can begin to introduce our two speakers. This will also be the first time I will be listening to them, so I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. I've been reading about their work. So I see we have with us John Chavez, and we will be joined by Alex Horton. So John served as the president of the New Mexico Angels from 2008 to 2020, and he has been an active angel investor since 2003. He's also the managing director of Phase One Ventures, a startup fund out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and managing director of New Mexico Startup Factory 1 and 2. I'm also going to introduce Alex before I hand it over to you, John. Alex is an entrepreneur. He's a risk manager and insurance broker who's passionate about bringing economic opportunities to New Mexico. He's the founder of International District Economic Development, the first economic development center in the International District. The center provides community with access to resources they need to develop business and grow the job base. So as you can see, very, very relevant for our topics today around social entrepreneurship and impact investing. So without taking any more time, John, I'm going to hand it over to you. You have about 10 to 15 minutes to share your insights. Then I'm going to invite Alex. Hopefully he would have joined us by then to share his insight for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll open it up for questions and dialogue. So all yours, John.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for everyone who's on the call. So I was Googling presentations on the internet, and they said the best thing to do is start with a joke. So I will start with a joke. Okay, so there's a dog goes into a bar, goes up to the bar and orders a beer. The bartender looks at him and says, "What do you think we are, a kennel or something?" and shoots him in the foot. A day later, the dog comes back in. He's got a black hat, black vest, black holster, black gun, and a black bandage over his foot. He opens the door and says, "Where's that man that shot my paw?" Get it? Paul got it. Well, thank you all. What I want to talk today is about social entrepreneurship. And really what I want to talk about is supporting New Mexico. We can talk about social good all over the United States, all over the world, but what we can do as individuals and as entrepreneurs and as investors is support people in New Mexico that are trying to move the needle. And when I think about social impact investing or entrepreneurship, I always think about the goal. So what is the goal that me as an investor, am I trying to accomplish? Me as an entrepreneur, what am I trying to accomplish? And when I look at that, I always look at, staying local. I want to build companies that have an impact in New Mexico that through jobs, through tax revenue, through creating something out of nothing from our institutions. And so that's how I really start looking at the companies that I work with or start. And then what kind of involvement do I want either as an entrepreneur, as an investor? What kind of vertical is I comfortable with in a company? And so is it going to be a biotech? Is it going to be a materials company? Is it going to be a software company? I'm involved in 2 venture funds. And what kind of vertical are we going to be in? And how can we make investments that move the needle in a socially responsible way while still trying to find the return metrics that are necessary to satisfy our limited partners? And so that all comes down to what kind of people and what kind of opportunities am I looking for? And when I look for opportunities, I always look for ethical people, because if you're not ethical, it doesn't matter if you're socially responsible or an impact investor. It really doesn't help you out, because it just really doesn't fit a model that you have transparency, you have the engagement, you're able to say things truthfully about the opportunity in a way that is focused on building something that is sustainable within New Mexico. So once again, circling back, one of the things that as an investor, we always want to look at is the financial return. And when you're looking at your return metrics, you always have trade-offs. You can buy an apartment and rent it out, pretty stable income, but it's a very, what I would call low kind of return. You could do angel investing, high risk, high return kind of investment, but you got to build a portfolio because you know that not every one of those is going to happen. So once again, as you start building companies or investing in companies, it's all about the things that you want to do and the goals that you want to accomplish within that particular company that you invest in or the company that you're going to start. What do I look for when I invest in a company or start a company? It really is about the people. I mean, I've invested in deals that had really so-so technology, but great people, and they made it work. And we've had really great products and services, but really not good people, and it doesn't work. So once again, it's that return metrics. It's making that decision to get involved. We like strong intellectual property in the deals we do, a big market, a solid product that can be developed, because once again, we're the earliest in when we're angel investors, and usually the second earliest in when we're in the venture group. We want to see a good deal. You know, one of the things that we see is a lot of the GSC deals are extremely expensive because they're really hot right now. And so you have to look at what's really hot versus your return metrics. And then the sustainability of the deal. And can you put enough money into the company or create a company with a proper plan so you can sustain that in order to get to those metrics that you want to do, which is staying local, hiring people, and building a company in New Mexico. And then, you know, it's all about ethics too, you know, finding good people that are solid, have the right respect for you, respect for the world, respect for the spirits. I mean, it really is about those kind of metrics. So once again, on the due diligence side, both pieces, you have to look at deep down into what a person is like in order for you to get involved and hopefully make a difference in New Mexico. So once again, IP, market, the deal, the people, the social responsibility, and the sustainability of the deal. So one of the things that is challenging in New Mexico, not only for impacting investing, but investments all over the place, is we're a very small state, and the deal flow is a challenge. So a deal flow just means the opportunities to find a company that you want to invest in, has the right people and all those metrics that you're looking for. We always invest in New Mexico. Sometimes we've done a couple deals in Arizona, but with our venture funds and also the Startup Factory, it's all about creating companies here and keeping them here. And one of the things that we struggle with, and I think everybody would agree with, is we have this false narrative out there that New Mexico is not a really good place to be. And you see it at some of these economic development functions. You see it, people presenting that all the bad things that are happening. And it's like, why would anybody want to start a business in New Mexico? And the reason is because there's tons of other good things going on. You've got the outdoors, you got some really smart people, you have some really good training opportunities through the state and city. So that's just a false narrative. I think that everybody on this call should stand up and challenge when someone says, well, New Mexico is not a good place to start a business. The second thing is that there's no capital. There is capital, but capital is very discriminatory. And that's not a bad word, it's just the way it is. You look at investors, and whether they be impact investors, angel investors, venture investor, private equity, they have certain return metrics that they have to play with and they have to hit. And so if you're a company that is ethical, sustainable, has social good, but doesn't fit those metrics, it's not because they don't believe in what you're doing, is that they have different metrics than you're looking at as far as an entrepreneur. It is a challenge, and I've raised in the last year and a half, $2 million for my companies, right? It's a challenge to find capital. And it's not because it's not there, it's this venture fund wants this way, this private equity fund wants this. These angel investors don't like SaaS or biotech. So once again, the deal flow and finding that market clearing event where you can get some people and investment behind you is very important. So it is a challenge in New Mexico for both impacting, but also non-impacting investment. But I think having events like this where we can talk about some of the challenges, then, okay, we can move these things forward. So how do I find deals like in impact investment? events like this, Badass Entrepreneurs in Santa Fe, 1 Million Cups in Albuquerque, Arrowhead Center in Las Cruces. There is a ton of events that you can go to, and previously you could shake hands and have a donut, but now you can't do that. You can just say hi over Zoom. But this is just the start of what I see as a movement of, one, keeping it local, but having that social responsibility and that impact on New Mexico by just keeping it local. So one of the things I always like to say when I talk to angel investors is just do it. Just write a check, find a company, find a team, give them some money, and help them move it down the path. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next presenter.
Thank you so much, John. And you can see in the chat, there are already really, really great questions for you. And I hope we can get to them soon. I'm going to invite Alex now. I don't know, Alex, if you were there when I introduced you, but I did introduce you. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this space. If you would, for some reason, I still don't see you.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Welcome. Yeah, we can see you, hear you.
Hey, thanks, John, for sharing that and going first and putting that all together. I'm just honored to be here. Thank you, UNM, for putting this on and everyone associated. Glad for the opportunity to always get to talk about my little quadrant of the city that I'm so passionate about. My talk today was pretty much going to be about place-based incubation. And to start about that, I'll tell a little bit about the place. I was born and raised in the southeast part of Albuquerque, the war zone, or now the International District. Went to Highland High School, then went out of state and went to California. And like many of us, when I came back, I kind of realized that there was a massive decline from when I was actually living in the area and in the district to then now, with a bunch of ran down strip centers, just a bunch of disinvestment. And that really had me kind of scratching my head, because it was filled with tons of mom and pops restaurants that would feed off of the base and would feed off of this little quadrant. And so I always wanted to see if, what I would be able to do to actually support those efforts. And that thus, forming the International District Economic Development Center was just solely to focus on that area, right? To help businesses start, stay, and grow in the neighborhood, and actually doing it with community members. And thus, that's the start of my call. So, of course, the problem is, the southeast part of Albuquerque gets a bad rap. So you have businesses that are moving out, right? It's an uphill battle. You have the existing businesses looking at moving out, and then trying to find another business to actually take that place, while trying to actually grow more businesses. And so we've seen it as, okay, if we can help businesses stay in the neighborhood and then continue to grow, it actually hedges off things like crime, people moving away. For a simple instance, we had a client who took over a location, fixed it up, and the area that was kind of filled with a lot of crime, not that it moved away, it just is not there no more, right? And activation, I think, is a key in a community like this. So I'm going to fast forward and talk a little bit about one of the clients that we work with, Dennis Johns. I'm sorry if my presentation didn't pull up. I'm on my phone. I was coming from the Grand Canyon. We got snowed in, so I'm pulled over at a McDonald's doing my presentation. So Dennis Johns, neighborhood-based business, right? I know you probably have seen his truck. We call it the Breaking Bad barbecue truck. He sets up on Carlisle and Montgomery. But he's from the district, from the neighborhood, never has received any type of bank loan, pretty much bootstrapped his own business, right? But all of the things that we look at in starting a business, right? Like getting all of your financials put together, having the resources to just run your business correctly and efficiently. He just did it out of pure hustle, right? And so not necessarily filing taxes, mostly doing a cash-based business, couldn't really even qualify for a bank loan. So we looked at that as a huge problem of just like, hey, how do we help someone like Dennis who's already actually a business, making revenue, but just doing it more efficiently. And so we take someone like Dennis, run him through the program, and now he's actually using his services for the community. Oops. For the community and actually giving back. I mean, he cooks tons of food for the neighborhood. Oh, thank you for sharing that. If you could go down 2 slides, that would be great. Right there. This is Dennis. I'm sure you've probably seen him there before. Like I said, AKA the Breaking Bad. But this is our client, right? Lives in the neighborhood, is running a business or trying to run their business, trying to grow their business, but just feeling stuck. And this is our exact client that we want to work and help with. Could you go down one more? Next slide. Thank you. So these are our statistics. So prior to us getting started, we kind of marketed the community, surveyed the community, seeing what are some of the actual core assistance that people are needing. 60% of it was financial assistance, right? Understanding how to do a P&L, putting together a budget, putting together projections, just kind of overall financial assistance, funding. Where do I even go to start to actually fund my Main Street business idea? Marketing, and then was 30%. So of course, no one was digital in this area that we're working with. And so just trying to learn, how do I do e-commerce? How do I do my social media, digital marketing? And then 10% was other, like, how do I get in procurement, lease assistance? We had a lot of people signing bad leases or having, $2,000 in signing a lease, $2,000 in the bank account and signing a lease for $1,800 a month, right? That might not necessarily work out. So these are kind of the statistics in the neighborhood. Next slide. And our services. So what we do at the center, we're located on Wyoming and Central in the heart of the ID, right next to the McDonald's. We share a line with the McDonald's. We took that building, renovated it, kicked off the best idea right before COVID was a co-working space. So congratulations to me for opening a co-working space a month before COVID, which shared everyone packing in together is like kind of obsolete right now, but that's okay. We'll get ready and we'll re-kick it back off. So our thing is that, we're working with startup businesses and existing businesses. So business development is our first service, media and marketing. After we knew what the community needed, we knew we would need to staff it with a media and media person, right? That can actually help our clients tell their story, right? Like, why am I going to open up this empanada business, and why are people going to actually come to this area, right? We have so much rich culture in our area. It's like 36 different languages are spoke at Highland High School. So you have tons of culture, tons of dynamic that we want people to be able to say, hey, I can go to this area and get a taste of tons of different cultures all in one space. And then micro lending, right? There's tons of payday loan lenders. And that's where Dennis would go to actually get funding for his meet for events. So he was pretty much using a payday lender as a line of credit for events he would do, right? He needed $500 for meet. He would go over there, get $500, have 110% interest on that $500, pay it back in a few months. He's paid $800, right? And that's not only Dennis. There was tons of clients that we were working with that were actually doing the same thing on, where would you go to get capital? And so we seen this as, hey, we got to partner with a lending partner. And then Nucinda came and helped us out and set us up with the co-op capital that we can give these small micro loans. So not only can we help with the assistance side, but then we can help that client with that $2,500 or that $5,000 or up to $10,000 of getting this small micro loan to actually get their idea kicked off. A lot of times these are our clients' first loans, so we don't want to put them in a bad position. So we're pretty much running them through the same things as a bank, but at least making sure that they're getting all those things done. So it's really relationship lending. We've done $65,000 in loans with 2019 and 2020, and all of them are on a paying back schedule. So we haven't had not one default as of yet. And I think a lot of that is just due to the relationship with the borrower and really understanding how we can work and help, and we're all in this together. Next slide. And this is kind of just our process. So we always start off where every client we see is different, right? And that's why we don't really have a focus where we're not just like a food incubator. We're not just a tech incubator, right? We really don't have no one in tech, but the majority of our businesses are Main Street businesses. So service, retail, something that we can actually then help you get started, and then you can open up a location in the district. And so we start with a business assessment. We make a custom planning roadmap, help put together a financial plan. They put a financial plan together. We just obviously help. And then also work with implementing the plan, right? Like, how do we actually then kick it off and continue to do it? Because a lot of our clients need ongoing support, and we understand that. So our program is definitely more of a tailored to each specific business that we come into, because they're all at different phases. I say the client that we want is someone that's about to go sign a lease and all of their family pitched in money for this restaurant idea. It's like, yes, we want that client, because we want to walk through the process. Like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about the insurance? Have you thought about the lease agreement? How are you going to pay this if this doesn't work, or if a shutdown happened, and just like what happened with COVID, and you're not able to sustain. So this is kind of our 4-step coaching process that we do with each of our clients. Next slide. And community partners has been huge. We don't really do any sort of big outreach. It's all through by community partners and referral base. We're a small team. We're a team of 4 with a few more consultants, but we're really small. We're just growing. So when we get clients that come through us, we really want it to come through community partners. So then they're kind of doing a little bit of the vetting, like, oh my gosh, you need to speak with them. They're ready to trying to start a business. They just don't know where to start. It's like perfect. And that's worked out really well, because out of all the businesses that get referred through there, we still keep them as clients and keep helping them grow. One of the best statistics that I love is that the businesses that we didn't help start, right? So there was like 15 businesses that we didn't help start, and everyone's like, gosh, you had 15 businesses not start. And I'm like, no, we've actually saved 15 people from going into business that weren't necessarily ready, that could have went into more heartache, more debt. Our average medium income in our area is $21,000, right? And so if someone's came up with $7,000 to $10,000 to actually get their idea kicked off, it's all chips are in, right? I mean, this is here, or we might be homeless. So, we take that as, trying to make sure that the entrepreneur makes that decision. Like, is this realistic for me? And that's the most important part that we see us being able to do. And yeah, these are key community partners. And again, like I said, we do all of our meetings with them. They spread the word out, and it comes back. And so then it also feels like these organizations are helping with the overall building of the area, because they're like, well, I have someone, but I'm going to send it there because we don't do that. And everyone's kind of vested to check in on them. Hey, I haven't heard from so-and-so. Can you call on them? Yeah, they're having a hard time. Something happened. And, it's just this kind of built around support for community members that are starting businesses. Next slide. And here's some of our outcomes, right? So this is actually a gym on the left. This is one strip center. The gym is on the left and the flower shop is on the right. These are both before and afters of how they looked, right? And this is kind of what piloted us to say, like, is it even going to work, right? And I always realized that we got to make the investment first. You can't look at government. You can't look at people to come in and fix your area or enhance your neighborhood. You got to put your money in first. And so this is a strip center on San Mateo and Copper. It used to be an old bank building, and then a church took over it. And we had a gym owner that we were working with, needed space, needed to launch, lives in the area from Highland High School. And he opened up his gym, Stretch Fitness. It's on San Mateo and Copper. And he redid it. It's upstairs, downstairs, and it's just a small little community-based business that tons of neighborhood people walk to, use. It's a healthy business. He's even making it through COVID, which has been great. Been great to see that. And right next to it was another vacancy, right? And this is where the part that I talked about at first is activating spaces. Behind this gym, there used to be an apartment complex that a lot of stuff was going on that wasn't really good. they ended up actually getting those people kicked out because they were doing illegal activities. The gym manager moved into the back, and it just changed that parking lot. It just changed that area where a lot of things that were going on don't go on over there anymore. And then the next vacancy was right next to it, and her name is Kim. She works at Emerson as a community school teacher, and she's like, I'm ready to start my business. And I'm like, great, let's do this. And she wanted to kick off a flower shop, and has a green thumb. I mean, I can't grow anything to save my life, but she's making me keep my bonsai alive, so I'm really excited. And before, it was just vacant, it was gross, it was nasty. I mean, if you could have seen the inside, it was just disastrous. Both of these locations were just disastrous. Turn it into a flower shop, and she's doing so well. She does so many orders with the VA, and just getting continuous the support. She was one of the clients we've helped support with some startup capital that she's just been doing awesome with, and actually being able to grow. So this was our goal. Like, this is it overall, is we want to help businesses start, stay, and grow in the neighborhood, and be placed in the neighborhood, and working with landowners, working with developers to say, hey, let's create these places, because we have the leases, we have people that would support these, and they're all neighborhood-based businesses. And that's how you see things starting to turn around because of businesses. And it's like the most simplest thing. It's like starting more businesses, getting more businesses activate, getting more community members actually engaged in rundown properties, and putting the pressure on and saying, hey, we have solutions to actually get these things fixed, and moving forward. So yeah, thank you. Next slide. Boom. That's it. Thank you, guys. I appreciate a little bit of time to chat with everyone. And sorry I'm having to do this on my phone. I apologize. Like I said, we got snowed in the Grand Canyon, and I'm here in Grants. So the nice thing about virtual is doing it from anywhere, right? And I appreciate you guys being able to let me present. So I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I appreciate that you stopped from your wait from Grand Canyon and you're doing this. It's just so grateful to you for sharing your insights. This is really inspiring. So if you'll see in the chat, there are lots of sort of questions and opportunities to connect with you. So I would encourage you, if you can, on your phone, scroll through the chat too. But what I'm going to do is, I have some questions for John, some questions for you. I'll probably go back and forth between you and John, but feel free to jump in if you have a response to somebody else's question. So maybe, John, I'll get to you first with Paul's question. And Paul asks, when you say it's about people, what do you look for, and what should social entrepreneurs be looking for in terms of co-founders and team members?
Great question. So it's not looking for people like you as an individual. It's looking for skill sets that help you move the company forward. Additionally, having people on the same page as far as the goals for the company. So once again, you can have financial goals, you can have capital raising goals, you can have product goals, but from a social responsibility and a social impacting perspective, if that is going to be a goal of your company, you have to have someone that has the same belief and the same understanding that you're going to spend time, effort, and money on that particular goal. So, and if they don't buy in, they're not going to buy into the whole premise of the company. So once again, having that focus and that belief in what you are doing in the company is, you can't buy that stuff. And it's a passion. You can tell it's a passion.
Thank you. Thank you for that, John. So Alex, the next question I'm going to ask you in the chat, it says, it's from Eric. It says, how can the wider community help more to help folks who don't have the credit profile that banks and others usually look for?
I'm sorry, it was cutting out. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So Eric asks, how can the wider community help more to help folks who don't have the credit profile that banks and others usually look for?
Oh, yes, that'd be great. So we have our account set up with Nucinda. Nucinda actually handles all of our funding for our loans that we actually distribute. So after we kick it over to them, we have an account. So I can share things in the chat where that goes directly to entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't go to us or our overhead. We have other ways of covering all of that. This goes directly towards entrepreneurs. And so we're currently going to be actually raising some more money for this small little fund that we can actually do that, to have those investments direct to the entrepreneur. So thank you, Eric, for asking about that.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, it'll be great if you can input that information in the chat. So I'm coming back to you, John. This is from John Mertz. It says, what social entrepreneurs have you invested in and supported in New Mexico? What is their current state of scaling?
Sure. So Santa Fe company, sustainable, always thinking about their footprint, both from a carbon, but also from a product perspective. And we help them, it's been a while, it's a retail deal. They're still alive, just barely. But the idea of what they were trying to accomplish really made sense, both for the marketplace, but also from the sustainability perspective. Yeah, I think they're still around. I mean, once again, when you talk about social responsibility reporting, you know, as an investor, hopefully you're going to get reporting, period. And that would be that the company's still around, there's finances, you know, what's the progress of the company. Overlaying some social responsibility things is important, but really it's about that entrepreneur reporting out what they think is important to the investors. But that was one company out of Santa Fe.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. When I was sort of reading about your work, you know, and especially trying to understand what New Mexico Startup Factory does, it sounds like, you know, you're investing in tech-based solutions, you know, so working with scientists to get their idea to commercializing. And what came to my mind was that, you know, so how do you really address the gender and race sort of stereotypes when it comes to science and when it comes to technology-based entrepreneurship? Has your organization and you, have you thought about that, and have there any ways you've sort of addressed that issue?
So the Startup Factories model is that we don't invest in companies, we actually create them. So we are out there scouring the landscape in New Mexico for good technology. You know, we have biotech companies, we have materials companies, we have software companies, and really it's not a written goal, but it's really about finding the right people. And you know, and we're not having any issue with having women, Hispanics, Anglos within the company. I mean, we look for the best people and they pop up, and they're like me and Andrea. I mean, so while we don't focus on it, once again, it goes back to that narrative that we don't have good people in New Mexico. We have really good scientists who are Hispanic, who are Asian, who are Native American, and they're looking for jobs out there, and we're out pounding the sidewalk to find those people, not because of their you know, what race they are, but for the skills that they have.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, John. I'm going to move to you, Alex. Lorraine asks, how would you suggest entrepreneurs who do not live exactly in unstable neighborhoods make an impact and actually connect to the community? This is a huge aspect of what Lorraine hopes to do in the future. And I see sort of a theme in questions for you. I think people are really wanting to reach out and sort of contribute and collaborate. So I sense that, and I hope you see that too.
Yes, no, it's great. The first thing you could do is go eat at one of these restaurants, right? Help change the narrative in some of these locations, right? Because there's so many good people that live in some of these areas where we're like, well, I wouldn't go eat over there. But go eat over there, spend a little time, reach out to some of the community organizations, right? Because they're the ones, pounding the pavements on the streets, working with all the community members, right? So I would always say, look and see who's doing the work, and then just reach out and just say, hey, how can I be of service, right? Like, is there anything that you would be able to use? I think sometimes we get into a prescriptive thing of like, even me, right? Oh my gosh, it's my neighborhood, I love it so much, how can I just save everything, right? And you can't, right? And it's just like, hey, where can I use my best expertise to actually help better the cause that you guys are moving forward? So I would just say, get involved, jump in on a committee, even if you're not from there, right? It's great to get people that don't live in the district to come in and hop on committee, and they're bringing just different set of skill set, different set of resources, and just be involved. And then of course, go eat, shop, and spend some time and spend some money in some of these areas with some of these businesses.
Thank you, Alex. I'm going to ask Emily's question to you, John. What advice do you have for local social entrepreneurs who are having trouble scaling because they cannot get investors to take their business seriously? And she's asking on behalf of some aspiring social entrepreneurs. She's my friend and colleague. She's joining us from Tennessee, where she lives. And so it's saying that investor culture is very conservative. It's really not familiar with social impact as a concept. So what advice do you have for social entrepreneurs who may be facing these issues?
Great question. I'm going to revise and extend my remarks from my last question, though. One thing that we're deliberately doing with one of our technology companies is the technology comes from NASA. It is, I won't tell you what it is because we haven't announced the company yet. We have a New Mexico Small Business Assistance Program grant from Sandia Labs to do testing and a product manufacturing process. But we're actively trying to get onto a Native American business park in northern New Mexico. So it was deliberate on our part to go up to this Pueblo and say, you have a business park, we have a company. Can we do a deal where we bring that company up to your lands, we rent space from you, you invest in us, and then we'll hire a couple folks from the Native American community to help us develop the product. So sometimes it's deliberate and sometimes it's happenstance, but this idea of impacting a community by deliberately going up there and saying, we want to start a business, we want to play in your sandbox because you have some really cool things that we believe would be an asset to us as a company. And hopefully we would be an asset to your community because of the jobs and the capital we're bringing up there. So revise and extend my remarks. Regarding in communities that are a little bit more conservative than New Mexico as far as impact investing. And I sent her a note in the chat, but really what's driving social impact investing are community foundations. You look at Santa Fe, they have done they actually have a fund for social impact investing. Albuquerque has a fund for social impact investing where the community comes together. There's finance people, there's business people that review deals and say, this is something that we want to put some of our capital behind and help in order to better the community, providing those resources to the entrepreneur so they can build a company. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of social impact investing is coming out of the community foundations across the United States.
Thank you, John. Fantastic. So Alex, Crystal has a very sort of concrete, straightforward question for you. She asked, how do we go about starting a food truck business without a credit profile?
No, that's a great question. When I seen that in the chat, it reminded me of a entrepreneur we're working with. Her name is Nicole Yepa, and she does was trying to open up an Indian taco food truck, and just didn't really have a lot of resources. Was just trying to get it kicked off, and we just went over looking at, well, where you're going to be your customers, right? Like, where are you going to set up? What are you going to do? And she's like, well, I know someone at a car lot. So you know, what I always say is go out and test the market of what are you going to be actually cooking and selling to see if like people think your food is as good as we think it is, right? Like I think my food's really good, and then someone can say, you know, the market might not support it. So go out there and get some market research. And so she set up at a car lot with her tent. She went and invested $50 in a tent. She got her warmers. She cooked from home, and she went out and she sold out on all her burritos and asked for feedback, asked for, you know, to get that actually market research and viability behind her product. And then from there, it's like you just start building your plan, and there is ways to be creative, right? I mean, a lot of people go to friends and family first. We've set up a few crowdfunding prior to us working with Nusenda. We were setting crowdfunding accounts, and we were sending it to, just how John was saying, the Albuquerque Community Foundation, the McCune Foundation, and we would send it to other people like, hey, please invest into this social entrepreneur, right? And they're going to come and cook for everyone. And so those were kind of the trade-off. So not to go around the long way, but I would say just get the markets research first, put your plan together, and if you need any help, I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you offline.
Thank you, Alex. So the next one is for you, John. John Cole is asking this. How do you view seed dollars? I think, I don't know, John, would you like to expand, John Cole, on your question?
No, I'd like to hear what I've talked to John before, wonderful source of value here in New Mexico. Just wanted to find out how he views seed money, particularly with those who have very limited amounts, or certainly, I just wanted to leave it open, see what he comes up with.
So seed capital is the first outside money typically companies take. Now, from a service business as opposed to a tech business, you know, a tech business seed money is anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000, and that's typically angel or coffee clutch money. And coffee clutch money is just 4 or 5 investors getting together over coffee, looking at deals. And angels have a formal process. So that type of seed money is it's very expensive. You're going to have to give a chunk of your company anywhere from 10 to 20% of your company. Seed investors that ask you for 50, 60% of your company, they're not seed investors, they're vultures. So a typical seed investment is 10 to 20% for $100,000 to $200,000 worth of capital. And it's on the same basis that you get it. It's common shares or LLC units, or a convertible note if you want to do it. That helpful?
Thank you for that, John. So Alex, the next one's for you. Andrea is asking this, do you have lawyer partners to help businesses with legal issues?
Yes, that's a great question. Always looking for more attorneys to be able to help out and refer out. We have a few that we work with. We have someone on our board, and then he refers out. But again, we'd love to build that network even more, and be able to share. Because again, having lease reviews, going over partnership agreements. I mean, things that, you know, I know we all think is like, hey, that's just normal business thing. Get things in writing. But you'd be shocked to see how many people are operating businesses for a few years with nothing in writing that says they own the business. And so always having more of that would be great. And I'd be more than happy to have a conversation after this.
Thank you. And I guess this next question is applicable to both of you. Maybe John, you can start. Beatrice is asking, do you know of any business grants that are specific for startup social entrepreneurs?
Great question. There are going to be some amazing things coming down the path here in New Mexico. There was, in the latest federal piece of legislation, a section, and it's CCIM, I can't remember what it means, but it's all about entrepreneurship, financing small businesses. They are drafting the regs at the Department of Commerce as we speak. And so one of the things I'll keep Paul apprised of where this funding is going to. So I think it's $5 billion across the United States, and then they divvy it up by state per population. And then on the Native side, there's 500 million for Native American communities from this program. Once again, the regs haven't been written. It's going to be a fascinating process to see how they deploy that capital. But right now, not of any, I don't know of any startups for social entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, and John, is that what's going to also be funneled through a lot of, they're going to use a lot of CDFIs to funnel, to put some of that money through, right?
Yep.
Is that, yeah, okay,
yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was on a call, it was interesting because they were like, there's not enough CDFIs to actually get all this money out. I was like, that's a great problem to have, right? They say there's not enough CDFIs. But yeah, okay, that's I agree with John. That's the only thing that I seen when they were talking about, with a lot of money coming through CDFIs for things like that.
Thank you for that. And if anybody else on the call has answers to Beatrice's question, please feel free to put that in the chat. I think it'll be a great resource for many people on the call. So Paul has another question, Alex. He directs it to you, but I would also like John to respond to it because I think it's just such a fascinating phenomena. Paul is asking, how about crowdfunding for that fund? So have you considered, Alex, crowdfunding?
Yeah, you know what? We just actually, we haven't had it set up for too long, but yes, like I think that was a big thing, kind of putting together that campaign to crowdfund it in a little bit more. Definitely will be one of the strategies. We tried to go big at first of just saying, hey, let's just get another matching. Let's get 9 more matching at $100,000 and we can have $1 million fund. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it is when you're looking at these small businesses that we're starting, right? That can actually stretch and go a long way. So that was kind of our first thing. And then from there, we can break it down and go smaller, was kind of our strategy on it.
And I believe, didn't last week SEC sort of change their rule to allow 5 million in crowdfunding, up to 5 million? At least that's what I sort of stumbled across. So maybe some of these funds could be larger too. John, what about you? I mean, that was another thing when I was reading about New Mexico angel investors. You talk about accredited investors, like how about non-accredited investor? And what's your take on crowdfunding?
So 2 years ago, I think it was at its infancy. Now it is a viable way of getting serious capital. And so I think if you have and I would recommend y'all go to WeFunder and look at the deals from New Mexico on WeFunder today. There's a little coffee shop up in Santa Fe. There's a high-tech eyewear company. There's a high-tech communications company. It is something that I believe is working, and I think it's going to grow further. And the other dynamic is, for an angel investor, writing a check for your own portfolio is $10,000 to $25,000. You can write a check for $200 for one of these crowdfunding. Granted, the upside on your return is not that great, but it gives you a very diversified portfolio for you to watch. And occasionally, helicopter in and make some comments and see what happens. But I think it's as long as it's done properly in a platform that is accredited and does it the right way, I think it's not a bad way to get capital.
Thank you. So we have about 4 minutes left. I just want to open it up and give, if I haven't gotten to your question or you have a question you haven't typed, this is the time to ask it. Or any comments, reactions to what John and Alex shared. Yes, Kevin, please.
Hi, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. We've talked a lot about raising funds and investing in small businesses. And I apologize if this is off topic, but I was just curious, what resources are out there, if any, for small businesses or startups who need like legal advice or legal investing, path to make advice and resources to make sure that they are in compliance with laws and regulations. Is there something that you guys could advise or provide a little bit more information on?
So just a quick comment, there comes a point in the life cycle of a company, you have to start paying for things. And paying for good legal advice is a protection that is solid for you as you grow your company. We've seen companies that haven't had good legal advice, and when they get to the stage of either the venture capital that we have or the angels, you have to redo a lot of the things that you've done because you haven't done them properly, because you haven't had the kind of legal work process that you want. And there's companies that will do it for stock. There's companies that will do it for a reduced salary. And you can always go to WEST, the Women's Enterprise Entrepreneurial Resource Center, and see if they can help you.
And I wonder if some law schools do that too, pro bono consulting. I don't know, Alex, are you still here with us? I don't see you. Oh, okay.
Yes,
do you
I'm
have a
still here.
response? Do you have a response to Kevin's question?
No, my risk manager hat was coming on when he said that, and seeing a lot of I'm like, that's probably my biggest stickler thing. It's just like, how do you get that represented correctly right away? And again, I think exactly what John said, seeing if you can get some type of attorney to maybe be on your advisory board, setting up some type of board, maybe giving a little bit of stock away, a little bit of equity to actually have some of that legal counsel is just vital. And I would just see how you can leverage some relationships to actually get that done. Maybe a retired attorney at least review stuff for you while you get started if it's really lean. But with the risk manager hat, it's like, as much as you can, especially if you're doing any type of business work, like getting that kind of secured and set up